March 17th, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. This is 1 Million Cups. I know that there's a couple of new folks, so this is all about entrepreneurs helping each other. It's a great program nationally of the Ewan Marion Kaufman Foundation. Our community sponsors are listed out on the left-hand side here. In Richmond, we've been doing this whole bit for about 6 years now, and nationally there's 150 communities with 1,000 organizers, and each month there's about 12,000 people who attend a 1 Million Cups somewhere. And so this is all about making presentations. No one's here pitching for money or for sales. It's really about building authentic connections, and it's run by the community for the community. So there's lots of places, as I said, all over the country. This is just a little bit of a snapshot here of the Southeast region that we're a part of, obviously. And, so it's the nice thing is with everything happening on Zoom, or a lot of it happening on Zoom, people can dial in regardless, which is wonderful. So these are our organizers from around Richmond and help pull this whole thing together. The next part is just if you happen to know anyone that you think would be a good 1 Million Cups presenter, we'd love to hear from them. We love giving feedback and also getting feedback. We love the collegial experience that this is. So if you happen to know any startups in the first 5 years, and particularly if they're post-revenue, we'd love to hear from them and welcome them to Richmond to speak with us. Lots of ways to connect with us through all the social media, as I'm sure you'd be aware. 1 Million Cups RVA is the Twitter handle, and if you have any questions on that, I'm going to put my contact info in the chat window, and I'd welcome everyone else to do the same too. We know everyone's in business, so it's helpful to get website and contact information out there in the chat window if you want. So with that, I'm going to stop my share. I think we're going to hand it over to Jay, if you wouldn't mind going first, and we'll catch Sean after we do. We're at the halftime. We do a few community announcements. So I will hand it over now to Jay.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. All righty, can you guys all see that? My first slide there.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning, and it is nice to be with you. I love 1 Million Cups because I like how we all think. We're a little bit different, and we all, I think, look at the world and say, I think we could do better. Whatever that is, in whatever field we're thinking about, whatever we're talking about. And that is certainly our story. I'm going to ask you a question, and I don't want anybody to answer, and I don't want anybody to raise their hand, but I want you to think about it. How many of you have HIV? Who has cancer? Who has hepatitis? You don't really want to talk about that here with people that are even friends, but mostly strangers. So why would you want to talk about it right there? Why should you have to talk about it right there? Between foot cream and lip balm and mascara, moisturizer, nosy strangers, always in a hurry. There are alternatives. Here's an alternative. And we've all been stuck in this loop. This is not the best alternative, I think, for life-saving or life-sustaining medicines. We all know what dealing with a mail order situation that is detached from care can be like. If you've ever had to deal with mail order pharmacy on an important medicine, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We think there's a better way to do it. And this is the front of our pharmacy. That's what's behind the closed door behind me right now. It's our lobby. We do not have front end of a drugstore like you're used to at CVS or Walgreens or Walmart or the grocery store. we decided to throw out everything we hated and only keep what we wanted and only put in what we wanted as professionals in the way of practicing pharmacy at a high level, to practice the clinical expertise that we got trained to do and what we think as patients want. There's a quote, I can't remember the exact quote. I think it's Brian Chafsky that started Airbnb. He said, stop trying to find the next big idea and solve a problem in your life. And that's the genesis of this company. It's born out of very personal experiences dealing with healthcare, dealing with mail order pharmacy for life-saving and life-sustaining medicines, and the frustrations that come from not having a local expert source to get medicine. This is who we are. I'm Dr. Jay Grassley, and I'm Dr. Jay Worthington. We both met at UNC, Eshelman School of Pharmacy, the #1 pharmacy school in the nation. We're proud of that. And we thought, we've gone through all this work and all this training, this rigorous training, not to go count pills and stand there and work in a production line. And after the second time I got asked for a Diet Coke at the Walgreens drive-thru, I decided I would rather go back to bartending than stand here and be a cog in a production line. So we thought there's got to be a better way to practice what we've learned. And Jay and I both have deep backgrounds in retail pharmacy, both in the big box environment, CVS, Walgreens, Ingles grocery stores, Kmart, and also in independent pharmacy. So we've seen what big box versus independent looks like, the community orientation of an independent. And we had a lot to draw on in terms of what to keep and what to get rid of. We are literally, when we've all said this in our life, when I'm the boss, this is how I'm going to do it. And by God, we got to do that. Well, now what we are a normal pharmacy in that you bring a prescription to us and we fill it. We simply focus on specialty medicines. Now, specialty medicines are interesting because there's no legal definition for what a specialty medicine is. By convention, they treat complicated diseases, specialties, and they're very expensive, at least $600-700 a month. Some of our medicines are in the low $20,000 a month category. So we're dealing with a lot more complicated medicines, a lot more complicated patients, a lot more clinical involvement and clinical requirement to actually dispense those medicines and have a successful treatment of a patient. And because of all those complications, we're accredited, and that's part of the hoops you jump through to play in this arena. We didn't have any better sense than to get accredited right when we opened. We opened our doors to the public in January of 2019, January 1st, 2019, and we were accredited by April of 19. And we're happy as clams. And then the pandemic hit. So it has certainly been an adventure, but that we'll save that for our TED Talk, which is going to be epic. This is an example of why we do specialty pharmacy. And don't worry about trying to figure all this out. But I want to call your attention to one thing here. The center circle, see that 13 340B prescriptions generated $440,000 in revenue. That's one reason we do specialty versus non-specialty meds. The amounts of money are higher. The old 80-20 rule, where you spend 80% of your time on 20% of your clients, or 20% of your clients make 80% of your money, or 20% of your clients cause 80% of your headaches. Somewhere in there, I don't know what that law is called, but it's true. You know, it seems to prove itself true in every industry. But we thought, if we're going to use our brains and we're going to have to dig in and do the work, Let's do something that is worth our time in terms of compensation, in terms of revenue to build the company, but also in terms of benefit to the patient, meaningful work. So that's another reason we pick specialty pharmacy. 340B is just one single business channel that we work in. It's a federal pricing program. I don't want you to get bogged down in it, but it allows us to buy drugs at a deep discount for qualifying entities. And in one quarter, we were able to do those kind of numbers. I wanted to show you that, just to show you the specificity and the focus that specialty allows us to do. How do we know what we're doing works? 2019, we did $800,000 in our first year we were open. We did all of that in the fourth quarter and one half of the third quarter. Took us a little while to get our legs under us, to get accredited, to figure out which end was up. 2020, we jumped to $3 million. And that was in a year with the pandemic and the shutdown. Hugely has impacted our business because our feeder clinics have not seen a normal patient load. Unfortunately, hepatitis, HIV, cancer, other diseases don't stop just because there is a global pandemic. But patients being seen did stop. We often echo our big medical center here is a Mission Hospital. Their chief medical officer has said all year last year, where are my strokes and heart attacks? Patient volume, even at the hospital in the emergency room, is off 30%. But people are still having all the underlying diseases we had. They're just not able to get care or not coming to get care during the pandemic. So as that sorts out, we know we have pent-up demand, and we know that we're growing along our own metrics, and we have a lofty goal of $10 million for this year. So we're very happy to see that our ideas work and very happy to move forward. These are kind of our goals for this coming year and beyond. We want to restructure our debt and clean up our finances. We're financed by SBA loans, which we always joke about giving blood, but we literally had a nurse come to my house, take blood for life insurance policies for SBA loans. So it's true. But it means we were very thoroughly vetted, our concept, our business plan. So we were able to borrow money, start this company, but we want to restructure our debt so that our debt finances growth and our operations pay for itself. Feel like that is a sign of a maturing business. So we're sort of in that mode where we're going from the kids' table to the big table. When you get funded by SBA, that's a huge, huge hurdle, and we're proud of what we've done there. But it's almost like commercial banks now don't want to talk to us until we get to the $10 million mark. And we're kind of in a no man's land in between. So we sort of have to prove ourselves all over again every day. Our plans are to expand our footprint and our capacity. We're completing our second accreditation, which is called URAC. They don't even use their expanded name, just the abbreviation now, but that's a gold standard in the industry that opens the door to all third-party payers. And we are pursuing licensure in probably all 50 states because third-party payers require it, not because we'll do business in all 50 states. We lose a little bit of our local focus if that happens, but we are licensed in 8 states. And we're not licensed in Virginia yet, even though you're right over the line. We're headed that way. We do a lot of business in the northeast corner of Tennessee. So we're right there off 81 and up into Corner, and probably will creep into Wise and Big Stone Gap and up to Abingdon in terms of treating a very rural patient base. We are growing. We've invested heavily in our custom software platform. We've developed some professional sales capacity, and we're very, very happy that we hired our first non-founding employee. We hired a woman named Dr. Michelle Simmons, who is one of 6 board-certified oncology pharmacists in Western North Carolina. So we have made oncology the next frontier for what we do, and are super excited about that. So that is us in a 1
Hey,
million.
thank you so much. That is awesome. So I know if we were in the room, everybody would be giving you this like huge round of applause. Yeah, great job. So I'm going to start us off with just one question about cost structure, because you went as far as giving us some numbers on this business model, which is awesome.
Right.
When you look at that 10 million goal, can you give us an idea of what the net margin is on something like that? Do you have a handle on, as you scale up to other places, what's
Right.
what's the difference between the cost structure that's central versus what could be replicated in different places?
Replicating in a lot of places is the smallest component of
Okay.
what would impact that.
Okay.
In terms of building a facility, it's not insignificant by any means, but the biggest cost driver are the cost of the drugs, and those are things that we have very little control over. In terms of buying of drugs, for instance, if we have a $10,000 drug, insurance reimbursement is set by policy terms, contract terms.
Mm-hmm.
And there's very, very little movement around that margin. So we know going in that our and I'm just pulling this out of the air. We know that our cost of goods is going to be 80% on that. And then that leaves 20% to run the company. So it's probably closer to 90% on that cost of goods. So we know we're dealing with a very tight margin, gross margin. And we're going to have to carefully manage our expansion, because if I could wave a magic wand, I would put a facility in Richmond tomorrow. I want brick and mortar in our 8 states. I want to recreate that beautiful, I want to recreate that everywhere, because I think patients in rural areas and smaller cities deserve this. So we have a thin margin to do that. And it upset me as I thought about how we expand and how we keep this local. If anybody knows anything about Asheville, it's all about local, farm to table, handmade, handcrafted. And some of those same themes apply to what we're doing. You can get the best care, the best expertise locally. And then I realized it's not so much that you can walk in here and get it, because the pandemic caused us to have to go to 100% delivery. We're still able to give that kind of local care, just not in person. So I think that's going to be the secret to our expansion, and the secret to controlling the cost that I think you're asking about, controlling that margin.
Yeah. Jay, and thank you for that, Jay. Yeah, because I think ultimately, from a business model perspective, there's this question about, of that 10 million, what is the growth potential on the profitability side of that 10 million? And how does that look as it scales up to other rural? I mean, there's no shortage of rural communities, right? So there's plenty of places where you can expand. So let's pause here and get another question.
Hey, good morning, Jay. This is Kevin Smither. How are you?
Good morning.
Hey, Jay, just curious, don't know much about the space, but I seem to think that in the medical profession, to be an owner, you had to be a physician. Does that apply in the pharmacy space as well?
You do not have to be a clinical professional to own a pharmacy. I do have a PharmD. We're all PharmDs here, so we're all doctors of pharmacy.
Right.
But you don't have to be an owner or an investor.
Okay.
We have an investor who's not a pharmacist.
Gotcha.
Is a cellular molecular biologist, and she joined forces with us as we started. But she actually doesn't work in the pharmacy. So, there's a different set of regulations for the people that actually work in the pharmacy.
Right, right. Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Thank you for your presentation, Jay. Yeah, I think, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the medical field. I think what you're doing is fantastic. You mentioned something about not wanting to get distracted by going national, and obviously something like this with the pandemic, for some businesses, the pandemic is helpful. And what are some of the barriers or thoughts around you guys just going national, with the internet and marketing and putting out ads in major cities, and kind of the opposite of local? Like,
Right.
you run ads in all the, big metropolitan areas, and you promote yourself as kind of having at the front lines of this kind of COVID way of life.
That's a really good question, and it poses one of the central challenges that I struggle with daily on the business development side of this company. You would think that a patient makes the decision on which pharmacy they're going to use. Let's think in terms of any other product or service out there. You decide as a consumer, I'm going to use this brand or this store. It's not quite the case, especially in specialty pharmacy, because there's a number of players. You've got the patient, and in North Carolina, as in many states, but we have a very strong law called pharmacy choice law, which says on paper that you as a patient can use whatever pharmacy you want. Well, that's half true. You can, but there's terms dictated by your insurance company. They have an outsized voice in deciding where you're going to go get a specialty prescription filled. And that gets into all those issues of contracting, accreditation, et cetera, et cetera. And then you've got the prescribing provider, physician or practitioner. They have a lot to do with deciding where you're going to get your specialty med prescribed, because they want to know you're in good clinical hands. Unfortunately, in rural areas, you're stuck with whatever specialty provider is available, which in virtually all cases is mail order, CVS, Walmart, or Walgreens, and a very shallow clinical depth. So you've got a frayed audience that we would actually market to. And now, to make it even more confusing, inside the doctor's office, the doctor's not really making the decision to send a patient to us or to some other pharmacy. It's a referral coordinator buried deep within the bureaucracy of that practice. So it's a phantom, it's a ghost. So figuring out who we would market to has been, that's a separate TED Talk about all our adventures, from baking cookies and taking them to doctors' offices and standing there like idiots, to more professional approaches, but figuring out who's making the decision, where the pressure points are to market. So we should pull back and expand. We're very conservative in our approach to expansion. We don't want to expand until we have business demand, and we don't want to expand without the expertise, clinical expertise, to back it up. It's the opposite of if you build it, they will come.
Jay, thank you for that. I also wanted to mention there was a question in the chat window before we shift over to Sean. There was a question in the chat window to give your opinion about CBD oil.
Do you want my honest opinion?
No,
Yes.
lie to us.
My honest opinion is the real thing has real levels of CBD, THC in it. And we know the psychoactive properties of the real thing. And when I say the real thing, you know what I mean. Not what you can run down to the grocery store, the drugstore, or the gas station and buy. So my little more diplomatic opinion is If you think that it works, then by all means try it. Did that come out right?
I'm with you.
I think very soon we're going to see a lot more legalization of medical marijuana, because there are clearly benefits, especially in the realm of neurological situations, epilepsy, especially some pediatric and infant epilepsies, some other anxiety applications. But we know that it helps with conditions that have a wasting and malnutrition type component. We've seen that with cancer patients, HIV patients, but also know from my scientific background, the levels of the active compounds in the legal products you can buy are so low that I'm kind of wondering what, you might want to wait from an investment standpoint, and also as a patient. It's a good talk to have with your healthcare provider, but I think we're headed in the direction of legalizing the real thing.
And so, Jay, if I had to summarize that, you're saying, I think what you're saying is that the active ingredient and the efficacy in this whole area has much more to do with the psychoactive aspects of THC, as opposed to any other sort of derivatives from hemp or low THC compounds. Is that correct?
Well, the legal stuff is so low, and it affects a certain receptor in the body, and it may or may not have efficacy on what you're trying to do. Higher levels most definitely have an effect on those same receptors.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
So I'm not sure you're getting enough of the active compound in what's legal right now.
I want to double down with Jay. I commend you for your diplomacy. I think entrepreneurs aren't always good at diplomacy, because we're like always in the trenches. So our patience to be diplomatic isn't always there. But you're right. I just want to say, as an MD myself, everything you said I agree with. I think I'm going to rephrase what you were saying in case some audience members may want to hear it differently. I think you're saying is, once it gets standardized through legalization, then there's consistency and ability to compare and contrast, and having an overseer make sure that everything, kind of like with vitamins, right? I mean, the vitamins going through the same thing. Is it, what's really in it? Who measured it? Who's the independent authority that can say this is not even legit or not legit, but like how much of it is really there, versus banking on some marketing story. Oh, this is grown on this farm by these people. Here's a picture of the people growing it. So I agree with you.
Michael, thank you for all that. And I think we certainly appreciate, Jay, your time walking us through this. Please include your contact information in the chat window in case people have additional questions, comments. They might want to reach out to you with respect to other feedback items. And again, I just wanted to comment to everyone to feel free to put their information into the chat window. We're all in business, and it helps to connect with other folks. Jay, I was going to ask you as well, if you wouldn't mind stopping your screen share. I'm going to do a share myself just to run through a couple public service announcements before we shift over to Sean.
Thank you very much.
All right, you are very welcome.
Just a minute, just a minute.
Okay, so this is just a couple very brief announcements here. So Startup Virginia and Venture South have a couple of events coming up. One is today at noon. We have another one coming up on Friday, both around Venture South and how to pitch. Network After Work is an organization that's relatively new to me. Some virtual connection events here. And so this is a couple of things that they have coming up. So it's meetup.com. If you just look for network after work, you'll be able to find them. Metro Business League is going to be talking about their membership and what membership includes to be a part of their organization. So that's going to be 6 o'clock next week coming up. And the last one is another virtual professional networking event. This organization is also new to me, Midtown Referrals. The name implies that this is kind of similar to the referral-based organizations. And so they're going to be having a morning event coming up on Tuesday, the 30th. So that's it as far as the public service announcements. If you want those slides, by the way, because I go through them so quickly, if you want them, you can ask in the chat window and Ian will be happy to email them over to you. So, yep, thank you, Ian, for pulling that together every week. It's really helpful to get the word out. So with that, Sean, welcome to 1 Million Cups in Richmond. As I mentioned earlier, some folks may not have heard me say this. I've seen Sean and he and I have kind of laughed together and joked around together at 1 Million Cups at the National Organizers Summit over the years. And he's been a longtime advocate for 1 Million Cups based out of Daytona Beach, Florida, in that area. And so it's my pleasure to welcome Sean to 1 Million Cups in Richmond, and help me welcome Sean.
Hey, good morning, guys. I am super excited to be here. It's great to present to you guys because I'm actually from Richmond originally, born and raised in Chesterfield County and lived in the Fan and Churchill and all over. So I'm really excited to be here. I love 1 Million Cups. I've been a part of 1 Million Cups since 2015 as an organizer and presenter and attendee. I've been all up and down the East Coast. So some of my early claims to fame, I was a countywide spelling bee champion back in grade school. Got to go to state competition a couple of years in a row. Yay, I was a big nerd back in the day. Also, I fell in love with the art of writing in the 3rd grade when I entered a young authors contest. But of course, life happens and I went a completely different route. I ended up with a real estate brokerage firm, as well as a Class A contracting company there in Richmond. Did a lot of historic renovations throughout the Fan and Churchill, had an office right at the corner of Carey Street and Lombardy. And I did quite well for myself up until 2008. Oh man, worst year of my life. I ended up having to let a lot of really good employees go, ended up losing both of my businesses. And it was a very tough year. I lost essentially everything except for my will to live and persevere and succeed again. And, you know, truth be told, I was already pretty burned out on both businesses. I used to have a full head of hair, but it was very taxing. I was literally working 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, and I lost my passion for real estate and contracting. So I knew it was time for a change. Virginia, I've been there all my life. I love to travel. I love the sunshine. I hate wintertime. So Florida seemed very attractive to me. Plus, I have a daughter who had moved here back in 2004, came down and visited a lot and fell in love with Florida. So I made a huge decision to leave my family, friends, and my entire client base of everyone I had ever worked with behind in Virginia, and I moved to Florida. And when I got here, I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do. I came here a humbled man. I went from making a lot of money to eating ramen noodles. And I think more important of knowing what I wanted to do was knowing what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to deal with employees ever again. I didn't want a high overhead business. I didn't want the stress of dealing with city inspectors and permits and a weather dependent business. So once I started to identify those things, started to become more clear the direction I should probably go. Now, I still didn't know what I was going to do, but in the meantime, I thought, you know what? I'm going to tap back into my love of writing. It's something I've been doing as a hobby on the side. I thought maybe one day I'd write a book. Well, 3 months after moving to Florida, I had written and published my very first book, Health and Happiness, an Owner's Manual for the Mind and Body. I'll never forget the day when I got the first copy of my first print proof in the mailbox. I was so excited. I ran all over town. I was still the new guy, but I was showing my book off to everyone. And it was super exciting. In fact, it was so exciting that I went on to write and publish 7 other books, including Invest in Yourself, which I actually got to #1 on Amazon's bestseller list. Most recently, I did an adult illustrated full-color coffee table book called Dear Beer, about a man's relationship with beer. That's quite humorous, kind of an adult Dr. Seuss book. And an interesting thing happened. I made a serendipitous discovery. The more books I wrote, the more people that I shared my books with, the more people expressed interest in writing books of their own. So I actually co-authored a book called The Book Book, a recipe for writing and publishing your own book, to help these people that wanted to write a book ultimately write and publish their own books. But that wasn't quite enough. People wanted a little bit more help. So they started, calling me and asking me questions and consulting with me. And right away, I saw a business opportunity here. I said, man, I'm going to do an author retreat. All right, I got this little island, this little bohemian retreat in the Caribbean on Long Island. So I planned this whole thing out right down to the last dollars and cents. I had it all figured out. I was ready to pull the trigger on it. I made friends with the owner of that little retreat, and then something happened. Hurricane Irma comes rolling through in 2017, devastates the island community and the retreat where I was going to go. So this taught me a lesson, taught me to pump the brakes a little bit on what I was thinking, and to really stop and listen to what these prospective clients wanted. And I realized that people were already willing to pay me for author coaching services, for ghostwriting, for editing and formatting, for publishing consultation, and for book promotion and sales. And I didn't have to do a retreat. I didn't have to incur all that overhead to make this happen. So when I stopped and focused on this business model, man, things took off in 2017, 2018 for me. I was actually able to do 14 client books in a 12-month period of time. And some of these people were just like me. They had been wanting to write a book for years and years and years. And we were able to make it happen, usually on an average of about 90 days from start to finish. So here's some of my clients here. And one of the coolest things about working with these clients, remember how cool that first day was when I got my first book? Well, I realized that I can only experience getting my first copy of my first book only once. That's a one and done. But now I get to experience it over and over with all of my clients when they get their first books. And it's just a phenomenal feeling. Now, where do my clients come from? Well, I've spoken at quite a lot of 1 Million Cups groups. 1 Million Cups has been very good to me in the way of referrals. I've met clients in all different scenarios. Even met a client at a funeral. I've done speaking engagements all over Florida. I get a lot of word of mouth referrals. And now I'm starting to get repeat clients who are coming back to do their second and third books with me. So that's super exciting. And the beauty of it is I get to work from anywhere in the world. Part of what burned me out on real estate was it was very localizing. I didn't really take a vacation for about 5 or 6 years at the height of the market. Now I get to travel. I get to work from everywhere. I have a very, very low overhead business with no employees versus a very high overhead business in my former life as a realtor and contractor. I actually finished 4 books last year while I was on a sailing trip, which was quite amazing. So now I'm kind of in a stage. COVID was interesting last year for my business. It actually helped me out tremendously because a lot of potential clients I had were on the fence. They had the desire, but they didn't really have the time to write the book. All of a sudden we're in quarantine and people find themselves with a lot of time on their hands. So I got a big influx of clients last year. Now, I had made up my mind that I wasn't going to work with more than 6 clients at any given time. A, because I want to give my undivided attention to each project. I like the one-on-one interaction with my clients, and I didn't want to bog myself down and burn myself out like I did in real estate and contracting. So now I'm sort of at the point where I've raised my prices and kept raising my prices. And now I'm trying to decide whether to scale and grow, and if so, how to do that. Maybe to bring on some subcontractors, teachers that are looking for additional income that can help me edit. Don't know if I want to go that route, though. Some of my competitors in the industry are doing group and forum coaching. They're very successful at it. Chandler Bolt comes to mind. He's built a $5 million a year business, and he's based it on group and forum coaching. But I don't know if I want to give up the one-on-one interaction I have with clients. A little bit of ownership issues there, because back in the contracting days, I got really good at apologizing for other people's shortcomings. So I don't know if I want to go down that road again. I thought about creating an online writing program. But again, there's some really good programs out there that already cover that. I am, however, still interested in doing retreats. I think now that I've got 3 or 4 years of full time doing this business under my belt, that now I'm maybe better equipped to do some retreats, maybe not in the hurricane belt, but I do think retreats are something I want to explore in the future. So I'm open to any questions, ideas, comments, feedback that you guys have, by all means. My contact info is up here. And if you've ever thought about writing a book, or if you know somebody who's got a great story, I would love to at least chat with them. So thank you guys for having me.
Awesome. Sean, thank you so much. That's really great information. And I'm sure that this is a topic that's particularly relevant for lots of entrepreneurs. So I'm not going to ask the first question. I'm going to pause here. I'm sure other people have questions.
I was wondering, you were talking about you're trying to decide how you kind of want to divide up your time and I guess the structure of some of this, and still be able to have that one-on-one. You mentioned you're raising your prices higher and higher and higher. Is the goal to, because I know people that are coaches, right? And what they do a similar model where they have the lower price for the online pre-recorded lessons. And then if people want to, send a message, you can reply when you have time to get to some of the very specific questions they have, like a help center kind of thing. But then you charge much, much more for one-on-one interactions. Is that currently how you're already doing it, or is that the goal, or even that you're not sure if that's the structure you want to go down?
Yeah, so I'm more than happy to give anyone a complimentary 30-minute consultation just to find out if it's a good collaborative fit between the two of us. If I feel like budget's an issue, I'll steer them in the direction of the book. $20, they buy the book. There's some really good information. I've condensed a lot of the nuggets that I've learned, and most importantly, mistakes that I've made over the last 10 years since I wrote and published my first book. I put them in there. So for $20, that'll get them off and running. If they want to do some individual sessions, coaching sessions with me, if they don't want to fully engage, I'll work up a little package for them, be in a couple $100 range to answer some of the questions they might have after they've read the book. But really, after that, they either engage with me in one of two channels, either author coaching followed by editing, formatting, and publishing consultation. Or if they've got a great story but don't have the time or desire to write it, they might hire me as their ghostwriter. I'll ghostwrite the story for them, extract the information through a series of phone or Zoom interviews. And then I have colleagues that cross-edit for me. It's never a good idea to edit your own writing. And then I'll act as their publishing consultant as well. So I don't necessarily have an online model, just the book or some individual sessions or the full-blown package that they're going to need, depending on what their expectations and goals are.
Okay. And the goal is not to create an online course that anyone could just start taking and enrolling in.
Yeah, there are some competitors of mine who have invested a lot of time, money, and energy into creating some pretty decent online programs. I went through a couple of my competitors' online programs just to see what the competition was doing. And I thought, man, they really got a good handle on it. And, honestly, I don't have any qualms about referring one of my prospective clients to one of those programs if I feel like that's the best fit for them. Some of my competitors have affiliate situations where I haven't done this yet, but I could get, maybe a 10-15% referral fee by putting someone into one of their programs. I feel like I might be better served to do that versus to try to recreate the wheel when somebody else is already doing it and they have a lot of momentum. I'm pretty busy right now. I'm booked out solid right now for at least until the end of the summer. I've got a full client load. So I'm struggling because I'm kind of capped out now. I found the sweet spot in the pricing. So my pricing over the last 4 years has almost quadrupled. And I kept pushing the limit to see what people were willing to pay. I at one time was working with 11 clients at once. And I quickly realized that that was a formula for burnout. So I had to cut down on the volume of clients I was dealing with and ratchet my price up to try to, weed out some of the lower end clients, I guess you could say. But I want to try to help everybody. That's why I wrote the book. That's why I'm willing to do, free consult and some one-on-one sessions to try to fill that void. But I just don't know that the online model would be worth it for me.
Sean,
Sean, thank you for that. Michael, hold on one second. If
sorry.
just a short reminder, if you're not speaking, please put yourself on mute. We're getting a little bit of feedback and tapping kind of in the background here. The microphones can be a little sensitive. Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is fantastic. There's a growing need for it. And so I commend you. I think it's great. A few questions. First is the pricing, because I've seen people do something similar to you. Kind of what's the pricing history? Where did you start? Where are you now, and where are you headed? And then also, to what extent do you help or facilitate the distribution, marketing of the book? So somebody comes to you, and I don't know, maybe you used to charge 1,000, and it went to 3, then 7, and now you charge 10. I mean, I'm just making this up. And then so someone pays you 10,000 for the book, and then now they have this book. Is it just a vanity project? Like, oh, I finally have a book. Do you have agents where obviously you can't hand everyone a book deal, otherwise you'd be an agent yourself and make a lot of money. But it was just, to what extent do you help with the success of the outcome?
Questions, Dr. Ty. So first of all, let me address the pricing. Editing is done on a per word basis. So 40,000 word book. The cost per word is tiered. So I have 3 different tiers of editing based on the writing style, the topic, whether or not I'm going to have to do a lot of background research as well. So the price range for my editing goes from about 5 cents to about 15 cents. I started out in the 3 to 7 cent range. Formatting is done per page. So it's a quick calculation based on an estimated page count. It's usually around $1.50 to $2 per page, depending on the type of book it is, if there's a lot of images and graphics, etc. Coaching package, during that initial consultation, I really kind of figure out what their pain points are and what hurdles they anticipate they're going to encounter. Some people need a lot of accountability and motivation to keep them on track with the project. Other people need organization and direction so far as how to structure the book and make it flow. And other people need a lot of help with their writing. So I'll ask them to submit a sample of their writing to me. That way I can determine which tier of editing they're going to fall on and what degree of coaching they're going to need. The other track is ghostwriting. So ghostwriting is my rates are anywhere from 25 cents a word up to $1 a word, depending on the length of the book and the subject matter. Longer books tend to get more of a price break and fall on the lower end of the scale. If it's a technical book that's going to involve a lot of research and footnoting, et cetera, then it's going to be on the higher end of that scale. So far as, sorry, what was the second part of your question again, Dr. Todd?
It was so somebody comes to you and they have a great idea and the
Right.
book's amazing, right? But is it a vanity project? Like, oh, I could tell my grandchildren, oh, I have a book, or do you have agent relationships, marketing, distribution relationships? Can you give someone a chance to swing the bat at becoming like a real published author, as opposed to like, I just have a book?
Fantastic. So it's a combination of a lot of different expectations and objectives for the book. I've worked with quite a few clients that have written memorial books for lost loved ones, autobiographical books, technical books on their areas of expertise. A lot of my clients will write books to promote their own business, to show their expertise in the field. Maybe Jay would write a book, about the evolution of the modern pharmacy and his business or something like that, and then give the book away. My first year with Health and Happiness, I sold 1,900 copies out of the trunk of my car, which I didn't realize what a feat it was at the time, but that was a tough way to make about $20,000. Second year, I decided to start some health and wellness coaching programs as well as corporate wellness programs. I started giving away the book to prospective clients. I'd give away 10 books and I'd get 2 or 3 leads and usually close one of them. So instead of making, a couple $100 on book sales, I was making $3,000 to $5,000 on wellness coaching and corporate wellness programs by giving away $30 worth of books. Some people, it is a vanity. Some people just wanted to write a book all their lives, or they wanted to do something fun like the Dear Beer book. So it's a whole myriad. I've worked with around 50 to 60 clients now on all different types of books. So I think it's a good combination. Now there's 3 different phases to the writing process. There's a creative phase, which is what everybody thinks about. That's getting the ideas out of your head and captured in some tangible medium. Then there's the publication phase, which is basically the editing, the formatting, the cover, the creation of the product. Once that's done, now your third phase starts, and that's the promotion, launch, marketing, and sales. I spend most of my time in the first 2 phases. I spent some time studying book sales and marketing. I went through a year-long $5,000 course to sharpen my own skills, and that helped me get my Invest in Yourself book to #1 on Amazon. So I'm happy to share those nuggets that I learned with my clients to try to condense some of the best practices for their particular book genre and what their goals are. And I'll include that in my coaching and consultation, but I really don't want to be a literary agent or a PR agent. I've worked with several different social media marketing people to try to help, with my branding so that I don't have to spend a lot of my time in that third phase. Sad to say that I haven't found anybody fantastic enough yet to where I'd feel comfortable referring a lot of my clients to them. So I've always got my eyes out for someone that I feel could really help me on the back end on the sales. But for now, I'm plugged into Amazon, largest book distribution network in the world. My books are available virtually everywhere in the world, Europe to Australia and everywhere in between. I do run a lot of Amazon ads as well as advertise my books in other forums as well, like Goodreads and Book Club, etc. So I like to advise my clients. I want them to be successful on the back end on selling the book because I want them to come back and do a second book with me. But that's definitely an area where I could potentially collaborate, grow, and expand.
Don, thank you for that. That's really interesting. We have another question that's come in here from Gretchen. Gretchen was just asking in the chat window, what is involved with publishing? So you've answered that to some extent. Can you just give us the kind of top 3 things, someone who's never done anything in this space, what are the top 3 things that people need to bear in mind if they want to publish?
So I like to compare the book publishing industry to the music industry right now. Remember Napster back in the late 90s, early 2000s, revolutionized how we consume music. The same thing has happened in the book publishing industry right now, largely thanks to Amazon. There's so many more options available now than there were in 2009 when I published my first book. Essentially, sky's the limit, and it's a very low entry bar. So Amazon is giving first-time brand new authors or independent authors like me the ability to play on the same distribution channels as the Stephen Kings and the James Pattersons and guys like that. The difference is the burden is on you to create your own following and to generate those sales. Back in the day, a traditional publisher would sign a deal with you. You'd sign away your copyright and a large percentage of your royalties, and that publisher would take the book and run with it, get it into bookstores and help promote it. But nowadays with the internet, social media, you can do a lot of that on your own. There's a lot of very user-friendly self-publishing platforms that people can explore and utilize on their own. I've navigated them close to 60 times now. So I've got the formatting and the process down, so I can really help to shorten my client's learning curve to get that book published in a manner that is going to be well received by potential readers. Does that answer your question there, Gretchen?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. Just pause here for a second if we have other questions.
I could be wrong, and I don't want to call him out, but Dr. Time, it sounded like you had a follow-up ready to go on your first question.
Sorry, John, I just saw in the chat window, Brooke was just asking, and maybe we will get a follow-up from Michael, but I saw Brooke just ask, how has your wish list changed? So you had put your wish list up, and you don't want to have employees, you want to be able to travel and so forth. Because as you look at scaling, obviously that's a part, right, of what you're thinking about. Is this a product scale up? Is this a, contractor model where it's a service? We just had more people doing that service. So can you talk a little bit about your wish list, Sean?
Yes, the wish list hasn't changed. If anything, it's just been cemented even more. I still don't want to have employees. I love, working with clients one-on-one. I love being able to work from anywhere. Basically, my overhead is my laptop, phone, internet connection. So if I can hotspot off my phone, I can work from anywhere. We bought a sailboat last year, so we do quite a bit of traveling, and I like to work from that boat. So I feel like if I start, bringing on other collaborative partners, that it may diminish my ability to continue on that wish list that I'm on right now. So I think for me, it's all about staying passionate about the business, not overwhelming or overloading myself. I do have residual income coming in off the book sales, which is nice. So that's a profit center for me. And then I have my client income coming in from the coaching and ghostwriting, which over the last 1.5 to 2 years has been phenomenal for me now. So I don't necessarily have to scale, but I know that I'm leaving money on the table. Some of my clients are willing to wait 3 to 6 months to work with me, but I think other people get so eager and gung-ho that they either go about it on their own when they realize they might have to wait to work with me, or they go to a competitor, which if I wanted to capitalize on, maybe I could work an affiliate deal with some of my competitors that do the online or the forum coaching, but right now that's not a top priority for me. But I think if I could share one thing with you guys, it's do something you love and stick with it. And if you're doing something you love, don't burn yourself out on it. It's so easy to do. I made the mistake of doing it with real estate and contracting when the market was strong. It's hard to turn down money, but sometimes your peace of mind and health are much more valuable than taking on another client.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sean. Let's thank Sean one more time. Jay, it was awesome to hear you today as well. If anybody has any questions for Sean or Jay, feel free to hang around for a little bit. I'll hang on to the call here for a couple minutes more as well. We're officially out of time, but thanks so much for another great 1 Million Cups.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank
Happy St. Patty's Day, everyone.
You too.
I gotta put on some green. Not great.
Oh, and goodbye from Denver, Colorado. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much, Hillary.
See you.
See you guys.
See you, Sean.
Bye.
Hey, Sean, can you hear me? Sean?